Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to part 2 of finding the solution or the roots of 5x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 0. And now I'm going to get into explaining in parts 2, parts 3, maybe part 4, and possibly part 5, how to use the quadratic equation. And I want to go very, very slow. I want to make sure I'm not rushing and I'm explaining. This is a complicated problem. It's a difficult problem. You can do it. You need to understand how to do it, and then you need to practice. I'll talk about that in my last video. So, hey, let's get going. What are the roots to 5x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 0? So understand standard form, right? You have a number, coefficient, represented here by a, in front of that x squared, typically, even if it's just an invisible 1, right? That'll represent your a in the formula. Okay? It's right. A is the number in front of x squared. It's the coefficient. Your b value is right in front of that x variable to the first power, right? There's an invisible 1 up here attached in the exponent's place for this x. So your b value is going to be the number in front of that x to the first power, even if it's an invisible 1. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please watch my videos on invisible 1s. And so your c value is typically the consonant or the number all by itself. And so if you have an equation that's not, and thankfully we are in this problem, it's already set equal to 0. But if this 5 was on the right side of the equal sign, you'd have to do the inverse, right? And you'd have to do the opposite of a plus or minus 5 and then bring it over, because you have to be in equal 0 form in order to label your C, your B, and your A values. So we're already in equal 0 here at the beginning of the problem. We don't need to worry about that. But when you practice these problems, if you have a value to the right of the equal sign, you got to move it to the left by doing the inverse or the opposite. Okay, and it has to be in equal 0 form in order to label your A, your B, and your C values. So here's the problem. I've color coordinated it from the top, right? In front of my x squared is my A value. So I'm going to organize, and label A equals 5. In a moment, I'll be substituting these values into a formula, okay? So based upon standard form, my B value is going to be in front of that x. Negative 2 is represented by the B. So I'm going to label B equals negative 2. And the consonant, the number all by itself here, is our C value. C equals 5. So again, I'm going to substitute these values slowly, one at a time, into the quadratic formula, right? Quadratic formula in order to solve and find my zeros. Okay? So I hope that didn't confuse anybody. Whatever's in front of the x squared is your A. Whatever in front of the x is your B. And whatever's right next to that equal sign, typically all alone, is going to be your C value. Organize them one at a time. We're going to substitute those values into the quadratic equation formula. So everywhere you see B, you're going to substitute a negative 2. So that's a negative B value. So if your B is negative 2, it's going to be a negative times a negative 2. Plus and minus the square root of B squared. B is represented by negative 2. So I'll put a negative 2 substituted wherever I see B. Minus 4 times A, which is 5. I'll substitute a 5 for A. Times C. My C value is 5. I'll substitute a 5 for C. All divided by 2 times A. A is represented by 5. So I'll be substituting these values. I'll show you that here in a moment. And don't forget, anytime you have a radical square root, cube root, fifth root, fourth root, it's always going to be plus and minus. I'll explain that a little bit further as we get along. So substitute the values into the formula. and follow PEMDAS, right? PEMDAS is simply the order of operations, your order of operations. We'll do everything inside the radical first, right? Because that represents parentheses, right? And then inside the radical, we'll follow the PEMDAS, okay? And we'll continue to follow that order of operations in order to simplify. So keep this in mind. In every step, you're following the order of operations. Now I'd like to show you what I substituted, right? So my b value is -2. I substituted -2 for b, but everything else is the same. Plus the minus outside of where the b is, the plus and minus, the square root. Now, that's b squared, so I'll substitute a -2 for b. Minus, minus, 4, 4. My a value is 5. I'll substitute a 5. I'll substitute a 5 for my c. And I'll substitute another 5 for my a in the denominator, 2 times a. So hopefully this hasn't really confused anybody. I think it's been pretty straightforward so far. Remember, in each step, we follow the order of operations, and inside the radical is considered a parentheses. So, for example, inside the radical, are there any parentheses? Well, there are, but there's nothing inside the parentheses I can do. So then I move to exponents. Is there any exponents inside the radical? Yes, there are, and I'll simplify. -2 squared is -2 times -2. Let me bring this up a little bit further. Now we understand all that good stuff. Parentheses. That's the first step in the order of operations. I kind of just explained that a little bit, and I'm showing you that now. -2 squared is -2 times a -2. And everything else, I do it one at a time. I simplify one at a time, and then everything else, I'm just going to rewrite and copy it down. -2 times -2 is a +4. -2 times -2 is +4. And then I just rewrite everything. The negative on the outside, the -2, plus and minus, square root. -2 times -2 is 4, so that's what's different. But the minus sign, the 4, and the negative sign, the 4, the 5, all divided by 2 times 5. So I'm going to be taking this step by step, going very, very, very slow in order to help you understand what we're going to do. Please join me for part 3. Again, I'm going to take this step by step. I'm going to go very, very, very slow. I don't want to rush this. I want you to understand, and I think if I go too fast, it's going to be difficult to understand. I'm going to copy what I have right here onto the next page and simply show you -4 times a +5. That's the only thing I'm simplifying, because inside the parenthesis, there's no exponents, right? There's, can I multiply? Yes, so I multiply -4 times the 5. That's it. That's all I do, and I rewrite that on the next page. So join me for part 3. If I've helped you, please help me. Come to others. Bring these videos to others. Like, follow, and share. Join me for part 3 to complete and solve the quadratic formula.